Good morning. We are going to be making a homemade pizza dough today because we're studying the origin of pizza, and that is your research today. For us in the lab, we're going to make the dough and then you can top it with whatever you would like. So in order to make the pizza dough, you need to have your mise en place. You need to have everything in its place before you get started, because once you get on a roll, your hands will be full of flour and you do not want to have to leave and go and grab some things out of the refrigerator, etc. So I have our flour, which is 2.5 cups, give or take. You need a little extra just in case for the kneading. I have salt, brown sugar, olive oil, warm tap water, and to get the warm tap water, all you need to do is run your tap in your kitchen, the faucet in your kitchen, for a couple of minutes until it gets warm. You want to activate the yeast. We want to wake the yeast up, but we don't want to kill it, so you don't want it scalding hot. And you need to have a bowl so that you can do all your mixing in that bowl. In addition to that, I have my pizza tray ready, and I want to make sure that I spray that with Pam so that it'll be easy to manipulate the dough on the pan. So I'm going to spray that with some Pam, and I'm just going to have that waiting for me. I also have some active yeast, and what you need to do is to wake up the yeast, because it is actually a living organism, is you put it in your pack, you pour it into your bowl, and you take the warm water. So I'm going to give it a shower. And that's 3/4 of a cup of water, and then I'm going to feed it. And this is a 1/4 teaspoon of brown sugar. And then I'm just going to let that sit. And what's happening in there is that the yeast is eating, it's waking up with its shower, and it's starting to divide and multiply. In addition, it sprouts some buds, so it's spreading out all over the place. And the reason we like that is because it's creating the aroma and the texture by emitting the gases, the alcohol and the CO2 that it emits when it's eating and then expelling its waste. And that's what we want. Now you want to let that sit for approximately 5 minutes until you can see that it's activated. And so of course, with modern technology, fast forward, I have that here now. And notice how it's very cloudy and bubbly on the top. It's almost as if there is a cloud that's emitting from the base and coming up, and that's because everything is growing inside. So now I'm going to continue with my dough. I've already added my brown sugar, and so the next thing I want to do is I want to put my flour in. What we're going to do is we're going to mix this together, and it's still going to be pasty and tacky to your fingers, so you definitely want to put some flour on your fingers as well when you start to move the dough around. And we're going to knead it. And what we're doing when we're kneading is we're creating some friction. As I told you before when we started, we had warm water, and the yeast likes warmth and moisture to divide, multiply, and grow, giving us that texture and aroma that we like in bread. But we also want to encourage it by moving the dough around, and that creates that type of elasticity. So we want to be very careful about how much we move it around, but enough so that the yeast is happy and wants to grow and multiply. So I'm going to put some on my hands, and I'm going to pull the rest of this out. And as I said, parts of it are still tacky. And dough is really funny because sometimes the dough is drier. If it's more dry, then you want to add some warm water. And sometimes it's too tacky. If that's the case, you want to add more flour. And that's just really individual choices. We have to see exactly, putting some of my salt in my flour as well. We want to see exactly how it feels when we start to move it. If you grab it and you have all this tacky dough, it's not dry enough and you want to add some flour. If you pick it up and it's crumbling and falling apart, then you want to move all the flour out of the way. For us, I feel that this is a great texture, what I have here. I can pick it up, I can drop it, but I feel that it's still warm and moist. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick it up with my right hand because I'm right-handed. I'm going to grab it, I'm going to flip it over, and then with my left palm, I'm going to push it down. and I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to push it down, and that becomes second nature. In other words, you just want to be fluid with your movement while you're kneading it. And basically what I'm doing is saying, Gucci, 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 goo, wake up, yeast, wake up, move around. And while it's doing that, and see now I've gotten to a point where it's tacky again, so I'm just going to pull in a little more flour. While the yeast is eating and growing and dividing and multiplying and sprouting buds, it is also emitting those gases that I told you about. There's some alcohol and there is some carbon dioxide. What that does is it creates those little pockets that you like in your bread, as well as the aroma that tastes so good with fresh homemade baked products. And I want to do this for approximately 5 minutes, but it's not timed. For example, I would not put on a timer, say 5 minutes are up, I'm done. I wouldn't do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to trust my feel, and when I've gotten to the point where I think this feels like Play-Doh, and I can still touch it and grab it and it doesn't stick to my hands, then I'm going to move it away from the flour, and I'm going to finish it up. Just moving on the surface until I feel like it is the texture that I want. If I feel like it's a little too tacky, I grab a little bit more flour, put it on my hand, and incorporate that back into the dough. And I'm just going to go back and forth like this. And again, I'm picking it up with my right hand, I'm putting it down, I'm smashing it with my left palm. Picking it up, putting it down, picking it up. Sometimes if you're really angry, this is a great exercise, because not only are you burning calories and getting tired so you can't really be grouchy to anyone else, but if you really think of somebody, you say, that doggone person, and then you feel so much better when you see them again. You're not as angry as you thought you might be. Okay, so I think I'm coming to the end. I'm happy with this. It's not too tacky. Now what I'm doing is kind of, you notice I'm folding it like this when I'm kneading it, and I'm going for a ball like this when I'm finished. Now, you can stop at this point and you can put this in the freezer, wrap it, put it in the freezer, and then you can take it out another time when you want to use it. We want to use it today. If I had time in the class and we could just leisurely do what we want, I would let it rise a little bit and punch it down. But for our pizza crust today, there's no problem with just going ahead and putting it on your sheet and spreading it out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on the sheet, and I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil on my hands, and I'm going to push it down, and then I'm going to work from the center. And notice how I'm spinning my pizza tray around, and I'm just going to work pushing it out, moving it from the center to the outside, center to the outside, center to the outside. Once I'm happy with that, and it doesn't matter if your pizza looks like an amoeba, that's okay. What you want to do is try and get it to the outside, but because you've been manipulating the elasticity in the dough and you're releasing that gluten, that gives it the flavor that you want, but it also makes it elastic. So you push it out, it goes back in. You push it out, it goes back in. That's okay. I'm happy with this towards the end, and then what I'm going to do is put this in the oven for about 5 minutes. I'm going to bake it, and then we're going to top it. And that's how you make a pizza crust. Any questions? Let me know when you come to class. Have a wonderful evening.